The session 2 is about women leaders in science. And before we actually move on to the session, I request Professor Ashutosh Sharma to recite a poem that he has written for us women. Thank you, sir. Please come.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to tell you that this is actually a poem about women scientists, and it's written in collaboration with LLM. No, not LLM. Everybody knows LLM, right? They're called large language models, and they got, all this wisdom of different things. So anyway, but you have to use it in a purposeful way. So I take some credit for this poem and some to LLM, whoever that is. So while we were discussing all these weighty things about, morning session, so here it goes, the poem. In a land of wisdom and ancient lore, where dreams take flight and minds explore, there stand women of strength, brilliant and bold. Scientists they are with the stories untold. It's pretty good, right? Yeah, and this is only the opening. Now we just got 10 more stanzas of this kind. So I'm just priming you for it. Through years of toil, they have paved their way in labs where discoveries lay. With hearts afire and minds aglow, they seek knowledge and let it grow. Their dedication a flame that burns bright, igniting progress, shining through the night. Yet often their efforts veiled in shadows, their brilliance hidden like unrecognized heroes. Whatever you like in here is mine. Whatever I not agree with is LLM. But today we rise with voices clear to honor their journey, their triumphs near. For diversity and inclusion, the keys we find to unlock sustainable development intertwine. Let us recognize these daughters of India's land and provide them the support to take command. Leaders they shall be, inspirations to all. Leaders they are, not shall be, inspiration to all, guiding us towards a future standing tall. May their stories, this is the last one. Okay, so this is have patience. May their stories echo far and wide, encouraging others with courage inside. For hardworking women, scientists with might are the beacons of progress shining bright. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sharma. And I think for some of us who don't know him so well, he's really multi-talented and lovable personality. And I know the success, why you are so successful and popular. I think your creativity and your multi-talent is a big thing. Thank you for encouraging us and inspiring us. Thank you, Professor Sharma. Moving to the next session about women leaders in science. This session will be chaired by Professor Jaya Sivaswamy Tyagi and co-chaired by Dr. Shubhra Chakravarti. I request them to please join us on the dais. Professor Jaya Sivaswamy Tyagi is an eminent molecular biologist and the NASI senior scientist at the Department of Biotechnology, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, where earlier she was the professor and head. She has 48 years of research experience in molecular biology and RDT and has several research papers and patents to her credit. Her major research contributions are in establishing proof of concept for DEV-R as a dormancy drug target in M. tuberculosis, discovery and elucidating mechanisms underlying vitamin C's dormancy inducing activity in M. tuberculosis, and vitamin C's potential as an add-on supplement to standard anti-TB therapy. Development of TB kits, for which validation and feasibility studies in program setting have been completed, and ICMR has recommended the uptake by the National TB Program. She's an elected fellow of INSA, IASC, and NASI. She's also the recipient of several awards and recognitions, such as the DST-JC Bose Fellowship, the DBT Tata Innovation Fellowship, and the Ramachandran Gold Medal, to name a few. I request ma'am to please conduct this session, and let me also take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Shubhra Chakravarti, the co-chairperson. Dr. Shubhra Chakravarti is an eminent plant molecular biologist and biotechnologist working in the area of nutritional genomics and plant immunity, currently as the director of the National Institute of Plant Genome Research, New Delhi. She has published more than 120 papers and has 20 patents, both Indian as well as foreign, to her credit. She's a distinguished fellow of all the three academies, the vice president of Proteomics Society of India, and a life member of several prestigious national and international associations. She is the recipient of several prestigious honors and awards, including the Tata Innovation Award, the NASI Reliance Industries Platinum Jubilee Award, and the Young Woman Bioscientist of Promise Award, and the National Young Bioscientist Award of the DBT, to name a few. I request them to please take over and carry out the proceedings.
Thank you, Dr. Sabita, for this kind introduction, and a very warm good afternoon to all of you here. We had a very exciting session in the morning, and I am sure that many of you are stimulated to contribute more and more to science. So this session 2, is on women leaders in science, and I promise you we have 3 outstanding speakers who are in this session. Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, who is not here in person but will be joining us online. We look forward to her talk. And we also have Professor Sangamitra Bandyopadhyay, who will be duly introduced in time. A shortage of time, I'm not doing that now. Dr. Nigar Shaji, who is here in person, who has come from Bangalore for this event. So I'll begin by introducing the first speaker, who is Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. Really doesn't need any introduction, but still, I'll be very happy to and delighted to say that she is really a very versatile scientist. She is a physician. She has done a lot of work in public health by leading so many different clinical trials. She has also served the WHO as chief scientist, particularly relevant at the time of the COVID pandemic. She was the chief scientist at WHO, and she has been really played a great role in emphasizing the importance of sequencing the various COVID strains in order to understand spread and virulence properties. Earlier, she has served as the Director General of ICMR and also Secretary of the Department of Health Research of the Government of India. And before that, she was also Director of NIRT, which is the TB Research Institute under the ICMR. She has been recognized for all her immense contributions by her fellowships. She's a fellow of all the academies that we are talking about now, the National Academy of Sciences, Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore, and also the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. She has received a large number of awards, but at this point of time, I think I will request Dr. Soumya Swaminathan to join us online, and I think she will be joining us very, very soon.
Good morning, Dr. Jaya. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Dr. Soumya.
And you can see me also.
Yeah, that's very nice that you could join. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Soumya. We miss your physical presence, but I'm sure your talk will illuminate us all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jaya and the chairpersons, Honorable Respected Dr. Manju Sharma ji, the presidents of the 3 science academies, and Dr. Rohini Godbole, and all of the esteemed speakers. Professor Ashutosh Sharma, thank you for that beautiful poem. You left us guessing how much of it was LLM and how much of it was your creativity. And as the speaker mentioned, your creativity is quite well known. So a very interesting poem, and thank you for sharing that. Also, I'm very glad to join you on this occasion, on the launch, at the occasion of the launch of the SWATI portal, and on the International Day of Science for Women and Girls. And I think it's a great initiative by the Inter-Academy Partnership to continue to focus attention on this issue of women and girls in STEM, and to be a portal where we can share resources, tools, knowledge, research findings, in order to provide that kind of information to girls and women or other people who might be looking for it. I think we need to really acknowledge the role of the academies in India, the science academies, for having taken up this topic very, very seriously, starting with the INSA report of 2004 and the many other reports, including that by Dr. Rohini Godbole and team later, and then the formation of this inter-academy partnership. This is a phenomenon that's global, but it's really good that we try to address it in India with the leadership of the science academies and working with the government departments of science and technology to find solutions. Because it's one thing, of course, to gather the information, to acknowledge the problem, and then, of course, to begin to address it step by step. Now, clearly, there's no single silver bullet that can solve the problem of the limited representation of women in science and technology. But what is very encouraging from the recent data is that there has been an increasing trend. In fact, in many colleges and universities that I visit now, I see that there are either equal numbers or even in some cases more girls than boys enrolled in courses like BSc Mathematics and Physics. Perhaps in the engineering sciences also it's increasing. In medicine, we always had parity, and I think clearly there women now outnumber men, I think, in medical colleges. But then there are still a few fields, perhaps, theoretical physics and others, where there's still a gap. But clearly, girls are getting interested, they're getting motivated, they're entering the undergraduate courses. But again, as is well known, as we progress through undergraduate, to postgraduate and then PhD and postdoc, and then further into academic careers. And then as we get more and more senior, getting to the head of department level, head of institutional level, senior policy leadership level, of course, the inverted pyramid continues, and there is a dropout at many different stages. So I think the first challenge of getting more girls into taking up science, I think, is improving. I think efforts are paying off, and that should continue. I think the thing we need to address here is really that at the mid-career level, early to mid-career level, when there is, I think it was Dr. Rohini Godbole who talks about the biological clock and the scientific clock. And I think that really appeals to me as well as to other women. The same time that the biological clock is ticking, the scientific clock is also ticking. You're most productive in your 30s. That's when you do a lot of your very innovative work. And that's a time when you also start a family, etc., perhaps have children and have caretaking responsibilities. And we know that women have the major burden of caretaking, both for children as well as for other members in the family. They could be elder people or anyone who gets ill or needs caretaking. It usually the burden falls on the woman. So that's the time when it's very easy, or sometimes it is a tough choice, and the women may have to make a choice, picking one or the other, and both are very difficult. In a few cases, they're able to manage both, especially when there's a supportive both home and work environment. it's also that, the leadership skills that are needed to compete at these higher levels also need to be built. And that's again a process of mentorship, but also being able to provide the tools and resources to women. So I'm very happy to be associated with a few of these initiatives, like the Women Lift Health Program. It's a global program that's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but that has 3 cohorts: the North American cohort, the East African cohort, and the India cohort, and addresses this particular issue of how do you build the leadership and the confidence among mid-career women, and also build a network of like-minded women who can share their own experiences, their challenges, as well as solutions. And so we've had now 2 cohorts of women in India, I think 3 in the US, and these cohorts are now sharing their experiences, which have been overall very positive. I'm very happy that the Women Lift Health has now also signed a partnership with the Department of Biotechnology, and therefore there will be the same program for women in STEM that will be starting this year, and that will address the same thing, but in maybe women in STEM, not necessarily only in health. I do believe that this type of initiatives, especially if the government is going to, join in partnership with a group or an outside agency that has the time, the capacity, the funding, the financing, as well as the resources. Many of you in the audience are mentors, I think, for this programs, because mentorship is extremely important, and role models are also very, very important. And I believe that in the recent past, young girls in school and college have been motivated by many of the role models that they see who are here today with us, and also some who are not with us maybe today, but they see women, in the space program. They see women in, top biotech industry leaders. They see women who are now CEOs of companies, of big companies, as well as women in other scientific leadership positions in the public eye, in the public domain. And I think that type of visibility gives a great deal of a boost to young girls, to think that they can also achieve, and that it's worth putting their heart and soul. The other thing, the message that they need to get from some of us who've been through this journey, is that it is possible to balance, your commitments to work and to family. You can do well at both. You don't have to sacrifice one or the other. And the feeling of guilt that many of us carry with us, really needs to be allayed. I don't think that women should go around with this burden of guilt, which I'm sure that a lot of men don't actually go through that, because innately they are brought up to believe that their job is as the breadwinner of the family, and that their career and their profession is the most important thing. Whereas women, at least in the Indian setting, are brought up to think that they do have their primary responsibility actually being towards the family. So, that's part of societal change. And I think with education of women, these things are changing, but yet we also need to create that ecosystem, that supportive ecosystem that will allow women to pursue their dreams, their professional dreams, while not feeling that they have neglected their other responsibilities. And that actually comes only from supportive and empowering policies. And again, I think our departments of science and technology has moved in that direction, taking into account some of these gaps and trying to address the gender gap by starting many new programs. But I recently was also at a conference in in Iceland, where they were talking about the gender gap in terms more of policies, politics, and the political economy of countries. And of course, we know that the Scandinavian countries, when you look at the gender index, they actually have been scoring the highest. And they score in the 80s out of 100, high 80s, 88, 89. And yet, when the Prime Minister of Iceland was a woman, she spoke at this conference and she said, we're not satisfied because we're not at perfect gender balance. And there were 4 areas that they identified. The one was equal pay. And they say that they continue to fight for equal pay for men and women, whether it's in the public or the private sector. So same pay for the same work done. And it's an unfortunate reality that this difference in pay continues to be there across many areas, including celebrities. You hear film stars talking about this, about the difference in pay to women and men film stars, both who are at the pinnacle of their careers, and yet there is a huge pay gap between men and women. So first is a gender pay gap. The second is parental leave. And I think the policies that the Scandinavian countries have followed could be something worth thinking about. And that is that when you have paternity leave or maternity leave, they call it parental leave, the policy there is that you get a year to take care of your child. 6 months is for the mother, 6 months is for the father. Can opt to take it, either one first. Usually the mother would take it first because, she has to breastfeed. But this 6 months are protected time, given for paternal leave. But it cannot be exchanged. So the man cannot say that he will give up and continue to work and that the woman should get additional 6 months of leave. So that is not allowed. And many of the men who spoke at this conference said that having had to do that 6 months of paternal leave, firstly, increased the bonding they have with their child. It also greatly increased their appreciation for the role of a parent and the time that needs to be spent on parenting. And that then made it easier for them to share those responsibilities with their partner. And they get, of course, fully paid leave. And this way, the woman's career is not more impacted than the man's because of the time that they have to take off, from work. And we saw during the pandemic that there was a gender gap in terms of the career progression, the publications that women scientists were able to do compared to their male counterparts, because that they had to stay home, children were at home. And so the caregiving responsibilities increased tremendously. The third policy is around gender-based violence, and to have strong laws and policies and implementing mechanisms to address gender-based violence, whether that happens, wherever it happens, whether it happens at home or in the workspace or outside, both, women have to feel safe and protected if you expect them to be contributing, at work. And the fourth very important one is caregiving. Social support systems for care, because of what we talked about earlier. Women have both ends, elderly care as well as child care. Burden falls on the woman, and therefore countries that have set up systems, that have invested in systems to provide care for so that the women are not bound down at home, they have a safe, secure place where their child can be left, a creche, for example, and then followed by school, after school care, etc. That allows them to go without that burden that my child is well taken care of, it's being well fed, well nourished, but also being given the cognitive and intellectual stimulation that you would give a child if it was at home. And I think in India, we need to really look at this issue. This is an intersectoral, multi-sectoral. It's not something that the science ministries or the science academies can solve, but certainly working with the other ministries and departments to address this issue of childcare will, I think, help not only women in STEM, but it will help women getting into the workforce. And the gap that we see there, and that's often being talked about by economists as one of the things that would boost India's GDP if we had a higher percentage of women in the workforce. And so I think it's a critical issue. It's, of course, a massive issue when you need to implement it across India, whether you're implementing it, for women who are in the agricultural sector, working in their own small farms, whether it is women who are in the health profession, nurses, ashas, Anganwadi workers, their own children, or whether it is women in STEM. I saw when I visited the department of WCD in Orissa, I was very happy to see that they have a creche for their women employees. And so many departments and institutions have it, but unfortunately many don't still, and even among our science institutions. This is something that we can commit to, I think, and that we can implement, at least if there are 4 or 5 children who need to be looked after, I think an organization or an institution must provide creche services so that the women can continue on. So there are some very concrete things that can be done, that policies that need to be looked at. And as I said, it's a multi-sectoral issue. It's an issue not only for women in STEM, the issue for the growth and development of India. And I think that a country where there is a gender balance and a gender equity certainly is a country that will progress very rapidly. And so that's something that I'm sure all of us can aspire to. I think the pandemic also brought out very clearly the fact that health workers are made up predominantly of women in all countries. And so women, also shouldered a very high proportion of responsibility for healthcare provision during the pandemic. They work very selflessly, and you see that day in and day out, not just during the pandemic. And so I think recognizing them, giving them the supportive policies and solutions, and again, providing leadership opportunities and mentorship for these women will mean that some of them, who work in the grassroots can then rise up actually through the ladder. And one gap we need to address is that at the decision-making and policy-making level, you often don't have people who have the lived experience of having been through a situation and where they can. So again, there's a gap by bringing people, especially women, who have that experience of having been through this. I mean, I think at the recent meeting, again, somebody brought up the issue of breastfeeding. Another woman brought up an issue of disability. So an inclusive policy environment, an inclusive ecosystem means that you need to have all these people around the table talking about the gaps and needs. It's not that policymakers, do not want to do the right thing, but very often the right issues may not be put on the table for them to consider to make the policy. So I think I'll stop there. And I just wanted to share a few thoughts, especially with my recent experiences. And thank you very much again to the 3 academies for organizing this. And I hope that the SWATI portal is going to really thrive and serve this community of women in STEM. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jaya. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Soumya. That was a beautifully articulated brief talk on the issues and challenges that women face, particularly as you talked about the mid-career challenges that women face inevitably. And you then also went ahead to talk about how there are so many positives and boosts that we can get from following the space scientists in India, particularly, who have led important missions and so successfully done so. You came back and then talked about how there are so many issues that are faced not only in our country, but also in other countries, and not only in STEM, but across various fields and society in general. So really you have covered the entire canvas, and I think we can see that the challenges are immense, but I think if there is a will, there will definitely be a way. And as you said, when the issues are brought out onto the table, then people will be there to consider them. We definitely hope so. So thank you very much for highlighting these points, Dr. Soumya. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you very much.
Let's have a round of applause for Dr. Soumya.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we move on to the next speaker, and that is Dr. Nigar Shaji, who possibly doesn't need any introduction into any one of us, but as a customary, it's my privilege to introduce Dr. Shaji, who is an Indian aerospace engineer that all of us know. She specializes in electronics in her BTech and MTech, and then moved into this ISRO and India's National Space Agency that we all know. And she is also a representative of ISRO in the IAP panel. And she joined ISRO in 1987 as part of the UR Rao Satellite Center, where she has worked on multiple satellite programs, including the serving as study director. And also, lastly, I think she was associate project director of ResourceSat 2A that all of us know. And we all know that last year she was a project director for Aditya L1, which is the India's first solar mission, which launched successfully on 2nd September 2023. And thereafter, we all see that she has been coined by saying "Sunny Lady of our country." And you know that she also has been awarded because of her achievement as Eve of Excellence honor by Tiruchirappalli Regional Engineering College. And lastly, I would say that I'm really happy and glad to invite you as a, you know, as a mother, proud mother, who has a scientist son and a doctor daughter. And that's really that from generation to generation, how science is going in the family. So with that, it's my great pleasure and honor to invite you.
Uh, First of all, thank you for the introduction, and chair, co-chair, and all assembled here. Very good afternoon. For the last 3-4 hours, we have been hearing on gender equality, the policies, and what we need to do to improve the participation of women in STEM. So I will take you a little away from that and give you an overview of the Aditya L1 mission, which is the first solar observatory in the first Indian solar observatory in space. And also this mission, which was originally started as a low Earth mission with a single very limited objective, but it was Professor U.R. Rao who gave the idea that we can convert it into a solar observatory class spacecraft, and that too at Sun Earth L1 point. So it was his idea, and we carried forward, and we worked for the last 8 years to make this mission possible and successful. And it is injected on January 6th into the Hello orbit in session. And also I am really proud and privileged to be part of this wonderful organization, Indian Space Research Organization, where there is no glass ceiling. So everybody is given a chance who has a capability and mettle to prove their best, and given an opportunity to prove themselves. So let me go to the overview. Yeah. Just to say why Aditya L1, it's though we have last 20-30 years of ground observation as well as the space observations of the sun from other countries, still there are a lot of things which is not very well understood. So better insight into the processes and the events of the sun and how it influences our Earth, that is one of the main objective. And the second objective is to have a better understanding of the space weather. So compared to yesterday years, if you see, we have lot of spacecrafts and space assets, because space assets was once a luxury, but today it is a necessity and it is a part of our living. And we have almost ISRO has almost 50 spacecrafts in the orbit in the above Earth. So this space weather has a greater impact on it. Even for the space stations, this radiations, that CMEs and the solar flares, what get ejected from the sun with larger intensities, have a big impact on the space asset. So space weather is a growing field, and it's to have a good model, and still the prediction of the initiation or the direction, and actually it's not very accurate till today with a lot of observations. So better, so moving along with the pace of the world, we also should have a better space weather model. These are all the two reasons this mission is thought of. Yeah. Next, why it has to be at the Sun Earth L1. All of you know there are any two big mass bodies, there will be SWATI. It was invented by the mathematician Lagrangian. There will be 5 points where the gravitational pull of the both bodies will balance, and that point acts as a small imaginary planet. So we can have spacecrafts around that. Here the L1 is the vantage point to observe the sun, because this point, as it is shown, this L1 moves along with the Earth. It will be never occulted by the Earth or for any other planet. So 24/7, it will be viewing the sun, and we will have the maximum observation time. And also it is much more closer than the low Earth orbits towards the sun. So that's why this Lagrangian point L1 is chosen to have this mission, so that 24/7 observation is possible. Yeah, we have we have a suite of 7 instruments to study the major events of the sun. And these are all the major mission objectives to understand, it's the coronal heating is still, it's not well understood. And I hope you know what is the problem with the coronal heating. Maybe because the sun with the fusion, the center of the, the center temperature is very high. But as per thermodynamics law, as it travels further away from the sun, the corona is the outer atmosphere. So that naturally the temperature should come down. But if you see the corona temperatures of the order of 2 million Kelvin. So this is that lot of school of thoughts are there because of the magnetic reconnection and things. So it's still not very well understood. So the coronal heating and the solar wind acceleration, and also to initiation of CMEs, flares, so that it can be predicted well, and the solar wind distribution and the temperature anisotropy. These are all the major objectives. Accordingly, we have the instruments to do this. So coming to the major science outcomes, it's only majorly it is to study the acceleration phase of the CMEs and flares, and also the coronal heating and their couplings through, because of we have a multivalent study starting from IR, UV, visible and X-ray. And also to the first time we are doing the UV solar spectral irradiance variability in the solar regions, and also the temporal variability studies for particles and magnetic field at L1 point. These are all the major science outcomes. It's a gift from ISRO to all the heliophysics of our country and also globally. Yeah, the uniqueness, if you thought about, because a lot of missions have gone, and that too at the L1 point also. In this first time, we are trying to resolve the solar decks much closer, because we are planning to go till 1.05 or not, very closer to the sun limb. And also the first time we are a UV region of 200 to 400 nanometer, we are observing the sun solar irradiance. And also we have, because we cannot have at the farthest point, lot of data cannot be downloaded. So we have inbuilt autonomy to detect the CMEs and flares, so that once the CMEs flares are detected, the data can be downloaded. And also we cover IR, visible and UV X-ray and in situ particle observation. So this is how it is being designed. So coming to the L1 orbit, because we have a capability, a rocket capability to have the around 1,500 kg of a satellite only at the sub-GT orbit. That is, from there we have to push it towards the halo orbit around L1. So we took the path of the gravity manifolds, so that we will spend less fuel in making it reach, and that's why it took 4 months for the spacecraft to reach the L1 point. And also this orbit is a 3-dimensional orbit, and it's like you can imagine a potato. That's the orbit will be like a potato, and it's also maintaining this at halo orbit at L1. It's very, very challenging, as you can imagine like a ball on the hilltop. Any disturbance, small disturbance, it can push it either towards the sun or towards the earth. So a lot of maneuvering and maintaining it in that orbit need to be done, and a continuous monitoring of the spacecraft is required. And coming to the payloads, we have 7 payloads. So we have collaborations with other scientific institutions of the country. The first one is the major one, that is it has the internally occulted coronagraph. It is because always the corona we wanted to study, so the center disk has to be occulted to have, because the light from the corona is very faint. And so we have to always, because you can only in the solar eclipse, you can see the occulted corona. So there we have built an instrument which can occult internally, and the coronal studies can be carried out. And also it has spectroscopy and spectral polarimetry to map the magnetic field of the corona. So this is developed, the lead role is played by Indian Institute of Astrophysics, and with the support of all the ISRO systems to provide the instrumental support and the subsystems. The next is the Solar Ultraviolet Imaging Telescope. This looks at the center of the disk. So where the photosphere and chromosphere imaging, this is the lead role by IUCAA, Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics, and also supported by all the ISRO centers. And so the combination of the suit and VLC imaging, we'll have an imaging of the entire sun, the center disk plus the coronal imaging. And next we have 2 particle experiments. This is mainly for the solar wind studies, the particle which reaches the L1, their direction, their intensity, and the velocity, all these things will be studied by these 2 in situ particle experiments, which is one is developed by Physical Research Laboratory, and the other is by our own VSSC, Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. And we have 2 X-ray spectrometers that is mainly for the study of solar flares, and that is developed by URF Satellite Center. And we have high resolution digital magnetometers to study the magnetic field of the solar wind particles which is emanating from the sun and reaching the L1. Actually, for this magnetometers to have a better study, because if you know international, say in interplanetary magnetic field, which is of the order of very few 10 to 15 nanoteslas. But the spacecraft body, the self-magnetic field itself is high. That's why we gone into a boom of 6 meters, so that, as you know, the magnetic field decreases by the cube of the distance. So we had that magnetometers on a boom, which will be deployed in space. So, and also it is differential magnetometer, so that we'll be able to measure this low magnetic field. Yeah, this is some of the pictures of the spacecraft development. What you see on the right is we need to do the thermovacuum test, because in space the temperature varies from very -100 to +100 and above. So we need to test the spacecrafts to that temperatures as well as the vacuum. So we normally do, all the spacecrafts will undergo the test. And also next figure is that vibration test, because when you lift the spacecraft through by the rocket gives a lot of vibration and the acoustic vibration, and so that the spacecraft has to withstand this vibration till it goes and get detached from the rocket. So that it has to undergo, so our systems has to be built to withstand these vibrations. So it's a vibration test we do, and because if you see the rocket, the envelope is very limited. We have to fit it well within that. So we normally have all our appendages to be folded, and once it after launch, once it is detached in the space, then we will deploy all our appendages. So all those tests, because those tests has to be conducted in zero gravity. So we have all the necessary instrumentation to create the zero gravity and test these appendages. Yeah, this is the finished spacecraft, where you can see, because all this the golden, it's the insulation which keeps us the varying temperature. The internal electronic components will be well within the temperature what it can survive. That much temperature will be maintained by all these insulation layers. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Shazi. You very nicely made us understood. Although I'm a biologist, but you so nicely said it. I possibly did not get everything, but something better than my understanding earlier from your talk about Aditya L1 mission. And you very nicely explained to all of us that, you know, how Aditya L1, how the sun interact with the planet. And we in a biology always say interaction, but then thinking about how planet interacts with sun is something beyond our imagination, which you can imagine, and how, you know, the space also impact on the space aspect. That is also very important. You also talked about and made us understood the outcome of this major initiative that had been launched last year, and how to detect the CMAs and all those extra points that you covered very nicely. You also made us understood how the 3D L1 orbit function, and also the 7 payloads that made it possible to work in association and collaboration with so many institutions together. And your talk actually should encourage all of us that how do we collaborate with each of the institution, not being only into our own one lab, but going out of even our own institute, intra-institutional, but then inter-institutional. So ISRO is always a great model for that. And you very nicely told it to us. And lastly, how you simulate zero gravity to make that how whatever you are planning, that how much successful it would be after the launch happens. So thank you very much and for coming and sharing, and we all look forward to many more such thing happens from ISRO and with all your efforts.
Thank you.
It is indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Shaji, the very inspiring presentation. It is my pleasure to introduce Professor Sangamitra Bandyopadhyay, who will be, in fact, again, a person of great eminence. She is a renowned computer scientist who specializes in computational biology. So in a way, in this seminar, this whole session, we have covered medicine, we have covered science, technology, engineering through the talk of Dr. Shaji, and now we are going to cover mathematics, which are very ably represented by Professor Sangamitra, who is the director of ISI and twice director. So I think it's not easy to get a renewal on such a top post. She has been widely recognized for her very original contributions. She has received the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, the TWAS Prize, the Infosys Prize, J.C. Bose Prize, Swarna Jayanti Fellowship. She's a fellow of science academies as well as the engineering academies, so electronics engineering academies, TWAS. So it is really, she's truly a wonderful role model for STEM, for women to pursue a career in STEM. So I think she really needs a big round of applause.
Thank you.
For that, Professor Sangamitra. And I now hand over to you to kindly deliver your address.
Thank you very much. And to Dr. Manju Sharma and all others who have made this possible. When I was invited, I really did not know what to speak on, whether it would be a subject talk or a women in science, but I preferred to mix the two a little bit. So I'll start with women in science and the journey, and I'll mention just one slide of the different research contributions that we've been making. But a lot of discussion has already gone into this particular topic of women in the world of science and how science can help women, how women have to be in scientific research and scientific activities. So if you look at the past, it has mostly been an inconsequential relationship between a woman and science. In fact, most of the experiments did not cover women as a scientific, as an individual in a scientific experiment, in the sense that most of the experiments were conducted on average-sized males. The way women react to drugs, how they, what are the symptoms that they present for certain diseases, these things have been misdiagnosed, mistreated. Women have gone through a lot of wrong medications. Symptoms were misread, medicine dosage was wrong, women's health got damaged in the process, and that is getting corrected now. The gender has now become a variable in many of the experiments. So I think the story remains like this, that awareness was less, a lot of harm was made, but then now the awareness has come and we are on the path of rectification, of correction. As we know, the top prizes, the top recognitions, very few to women. 65 Nobel and Nobel Memorial Prizes have gone to women, of which one woman has got the prize twice. So it's 6.7% of the total of 970 prizes awarded. And you can see where the women tend to get the more recognition. It's in Peace Prize, in literature. It goes down. But you can see the physiology or medicine numbers, the Nobel Prize in chemistry. In physics, it's the least, as you can see here. In computer science, Turing Award is considered to be almost equivalent to a Nobel Prize. 3 women recipients out of 76 since its inception. Fields Medal for mathematics, 2 female recipients till 2022. Since its inception, 1936. Abel Prize, again in mathematics, 2003, it has been started. 1 female recipient till date out of 26. So is it just about discrimination? Probably not, because the pipeline has not filled up enough. The input, I mean, you cannot train just 5 women and then expect all of them to become leaders. You have to train millions and millions, and then many will come up. So that process has started. That is the note of optimism that I always feel. But there have been major contributions of women scientists. As you can see, this is just a sample. It's not exhaustive at all. So as you can see, we know about Rosalind Franklin quite a bit, the structure of the DNA, which was not recognized at that time. But key roles have been played by women scientists. Even in CRISPR-Cas today, that we have a method of gene editing. 2 women scientists have got Nobel Prize for that in 2020. In India, this picture, just a few non-exhaustive list. Those who have been trailblazers, those who have actually shown us the way, and we tread on those paths, tread on the paths laid down by them through their immense struggle. Kadambini Ganguly, I know, had to face immense struggle, immense challenges to be where she wanted to be. But she also had the support. But any women scientist that you can think of, even today, needs a lot of support from the ecosystem. And I really loved, I'll come to that, I really loved Dr. Swaminathan's one comment about the leave rules. So policies have to be in place for a woman scientist to flourish. I don't have these pictures, many of them are here. And this is not I made for this. It has been with me, this slide has been with me for several years now. So it is not because I knew of some of the presence here. The contemporary women scientists, the younger ones. And I just wanted to point out, it's become so dark. Purnima Devi Burman, who was awarded, you cannot see it here, the United Nations Environment Program Champions of the Earth in 2022, I guess. And because of her conservation effort for the stork, the picture that you can see in the background. Women in STEM, we all know that the workforce is very, very little, from about 6% in 70s to about 23% in 1990s to about 26% in 2011. It has not really increased too much. And where are they? As you can see, they are mostly in the social sciences, in mathematics also. I mean, that's surprising, but yes, there are quite a few women in mathematics. Life sciences, physical sciences goes down compared to men. Computer allied fields still down, and engineering very little. In India, we see that we rank, I think we rank number 1, at least till 2020, that was the case, in female graduates in STEM, right? So about 43%. But employing them, we rank 19th, which is about 14%. So those numbers, I think they speak for themselves. But then we have to also consider, why do we need to have women? Do we really need to have women in the workforce? Why is it important? Is it only for the social good, for fairness, equity, and inclusiveness? Just a social work where we want to give more space to the women, that they bring different, they may bring different perspectives. Is that the reason why we need to have more women in the workforce? Or is there some other reason as well? what about the economics of bringing women in the workforce? Well, there have been studies, for example, the Harvard Business School review of 2018, which made a study, and they found that venture capital industry, which is usually very male dominated, diversity significantly improves the performance on measures such as profitable investment. The VC firms that increased proportion of female partner hires by 10% had an average 1.5% spike in overall fund returns per year and 9.7% more profitable exits. As reported in the Atlantic Monthly, a little outdated study, half a dozen global studies conducted by the likes of Goldman Sachs and Columbia University have found that companies employing women in large numbers outperform their competitors on every measure of profitability. And in studies, it has been found that men overestimate their abilities and performance, and women underestimate both, while their performances do not differ in quality. So these are facts of life. And that is where I think the women need to take note. Firstly, gain more knowledge, because knowledge brings the confidence which is necessary, but then be confident. And as has been pointed out by all the women leaders here, that women also need to highlight their contributions and not shy away from telling people what they are doing, what they want to do, etc. And my experience, as I said, I have been on the wrong side of all the numbers. And undergraduate degrees in physics and computer science, postgraduate and PhD in computer science from institutions of national importance, joined as a lecturer in Indian Statistical Institute, moved up to professor, and then to director, and then onto a second tenure as the director. And surprise is that I still have a reasonably functional family. Reasonably functional, I say, it's not perfectly functional. And what did it take? Nothing extra, not more than what it takes for anybody to come to this position. It is true for any individual: sincerity, commitment, and to some extent, a no compromising attitude, as well as an acceptance that there is a price to be paid. And therefore, you pay that price and don't feel guilty about it. But I must say I have been fortunate because I had great support from parents and a family that stayed on despite all the troubles I have created, and a son who accepted my absences. But most of the women are not that fortunate. Okay, and why is it so? As we all know, it's social conditioning from the birth of a child, as well as glorification of sacrifices that women make for their families. And a woman is expected to be Dashabhuja, so doing everything at equal level of excellence. That is not possible. If you do one thing better, the other thing will suffer. So that's a choice that an individual has to make. And there have been policies for helping women attain their objectives and also looking after the family, like childcare leaves, etc., which has reinforced the societal norm that childcare is a woman's responsibility. That is where I have been actually, as soon as that leave rule came in, I thought, what a disaster. Then everybody will expect the woman to be taking care 100% of the child, as if it's not a man's responsibility. And that's why I loved the solution, which Norway, I think Dr. Soumya Swaminathan mentioned, Norway has taken, that 6 months of maternity leave and 6 months of paternity leave, and that is mandatory, because the man then will appreciate the effort that a woman has been putting in for so long for looking after the child, and also the bonding, which is extremely important. Bonding between the father and the child will also increase, and it is not just left to by chance. As well as, you see, there's an elephant in the room. Most of the employers do not want to employ women in the middle age group because they feel that, okay, I hired this lady and then off she goes on a maternity leave followed by a childcare leave. So I've lost a human resource for the next 2 years. With such policies, it will be gender neutral. For the birth of a child, you lose the services of the woman, you will also lose the service of a man. So that is where I think equity is needed, not equality. It is equity which is more important, because as we know, this joke between equality and equity, that some animals, there's a selection, one position is open and several animals come in. It's selection in the animal world. So an elephant, a dog, a fish, a monkey, a crow, a seal, a dolphin, a penguin. And the examiner says it's an equal, fair to all. Equal, same examination for all of them. Climb that tree. Whoever climbs that tree will be selected first. So you see, this is equality, the same test. But it's not equity, because the elephant cannot climb a tree. The fish cannot climb a tree, right? So this is where I think a lot of policy matters and a lot of thought has to be brought in, where how do we test? How do we test for innovativeness? It's not just test. So what is it? I don't know. But anyhow, but there are now enablers, quite a bit of, first of all, thought process has changed. A lot of thought is going into at the government level, at the universities, everywhere. Things are changing. Advancement in technology with artificial intelligence, with a lot of automation, the physical power which was required in many services, that is now being replaced by machines. And therefore, that physical, greater reliance on physical strength, great reliance on physical strength is no longer true in many domains where then women can come in large numbers. And the need of the day, as we said, flexible timings, flexibility in place of work, bridging the sex ratio is extremely important, and gender neutral education and employment. For example, the creche, childcare facilities at the workplace is extremely important. And as soon as I raised it in my institute, I was told, yes, it is very important for the women employees. I said, no, it is important for everybody, because the father may have to bring in, or will have to bring in the child at some points of time. So don't make it a woman as if facilitating the woman, because we have to make it gender neutral and in our thoughts as well, not only in the policies, but also in our thoughts. And as I said, gender ratio, as you can see, the urban gender ratio is really poor. The rural one is better. That is something we have to take note and bridge it. So in 2015, there was this newspaper article, not a single IIT, IIM has a woman director. And today, there are a lot of them. Yeah, I'm just at the end. So, so a lot of women leaders. And so I'll just skip this slide, but some research results from my own laboratory. And we've been working quite a bit on computational biology and making some discoveries there. So with this pledge, I would like to conclude that let us each seriously encourage and help at least 10 girls and women to pursue a career in science and to facilitate, be with that person for a longish period and accept her significant, the society has to accept her significant commitments to work outside the family life. My greetings to all of you on this day and my acknowledgements to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sangamitra. You are such a great role model, in fact, for not just for computational biologists or mathematical biologists or statisticians, but I think for every single person who is in this room, particularly the youngsters, on how one can actually have a reasonably good family life and yet excel in their work. So thank you for providing this inspiration, I'm sure, to all our youngsters who are here and to those who are joining online. And I hope that INSA would perhaps provide these recordings online, and it would be a perpetual resource for all youngsters to tap into. Thank you very much. With that, I leave the concluding remarks to my co-chair.
So it's already concluded, I think, very nicely. So thank you again for all the three speakers who essentially touched upon 3 fields out of the STEM 5 fields. And we had very nice understanding of medical field, how a medical person thinks about, how the space person thinks about, and then how a mathematician thinks about. And then maybe we would move on to the next session, which would be chaired by Dr. Swaroop and Professor Khurana.
We now move to the next session, which is titled Entrepreneurship Development Towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. And this session will be chaired by Dr. Renu Swaroop and co-chaired by Professor Paramjeet Khurana. Just a few words of introduction. Dr. Renu Swaroop is a renowned geneticist and the former secretary.
Already introduced me, Sabita, so let's save time moving ahead. You can introduce Paramjeet now.
Okay. Hanji. Okay. And Professor Paramjeet Khurana is currently a JC Bose National Fellow at the Department of Plant Molecular Biology. And she's also a distinguished member of the IAP. And she has made pioneering contributions in the area of wheat and seri biotechnology and comparative genomics. Especially, she's been an active participant of the sequencing efforts of wheat, tomato, and the chloroplast genome of mulberry. Of course, she has a lot of papers and she's fellow of all the academies and also a fellow of the World Academy of Sciences. She's a recipient of the prestigious JC Bose National Fellowship as well, and has also served as the General Secretary of the National Academy of Sciences, Allahabad, and is currently the co-convener of the new initiatives programs of the Academy, trying to take science to society. With these few words, I request the session chairs and co-chair to carry out the proceedings.
Thank you very much, Sabita. We are at a point where we are between lunch, and so we're going to try and get these excellent speakers who are on our panel to convey to you what their points are. And we are now making an excellent segue from science in academia to science in entrepreneurship. And I think that's key because, as we said this morning, women in science are now in every field. And it's important to understand what are really those challenges and what are those key issues that need to be addressed as we move on. I liked Dr. Sangamitra had brought out an issue or saying if the VCs increase their hiring of partners in women, they'll see a productivity change. You'll hear some of the women today, these three in our panel, telling you that when you have startups and entrepreneurs who are women, you see how the whole changes. So I think without spending too much of time in our comments, it's important that you hear the speakers. We have limited time, so it's not going to be an interactive panel at all. I would urge you to please interact with our speakers at lunch, which will follow this. And if Paramjeet, if you have a few opening remarks, I'll hand it over to you and then we can start.
We can spare time on that. All has been said, and we look forward to this particular session because of the entrepreneurs who are here. And we have three excellent speakers in this session. The first one is Dr. Purnima Sharma, whom I've known, who's a very good friend. I've seen her grow in the field of biotechnology. Her growth is parallel with the growth of biotechnology in our country, I would say. We have the founder of biotechnology, we have the others subsequently also. Dr. Purnima is formerly the managing director of the Biotech Consortia India Limited, a company which the DBT had seeded for providing business support services for facilitating biotech commercialization. And who better than a woman to lead that? She has over 30 years of experience in the area of technology transfer and entrepreneurship development and has coordinated the transfer of more than 60 technologies to various sectors here. So her company is registered and she has credibility because she's an expert not only in India, but in 60 other countries as well. So a big round of applause for Purnima for taking this lead and for taking biotech to the industry. Over to you, Purnima. The screen, maybe.
Hello, can you hear me?
No, need to still switch it on. You'll get the slide. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. So, Honorable Dr. Renu, Dr. Paramjeet Khurana, and all the distinguished audience, a very, very good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Madam Manju Sharma for this opportunity. Of course, she's also a mentor for me. In fact, all the experts sitting now as chair and co-chair, they have also contributed a great deal to my growth. So of course, without taking much time, I'll get into the presentation, but it is more focused on the biotechnology, bioenterprises. But then the other two speakers, I think they would be able, since they are from biotechnology parks and biotech incubators, they've actually had a real-time experience in mentoring women entrepreneurs. So I'm sure they would be able to, exchange and give us a real-time experience on what the women entrepreneurship is all about. But my presentation is more general, in the content. So if you look at the Indian bioeconomy, because when we talk of bioentrepreneurship, indirectly it translates into bioeconomy, and this is something which is really growing at a great pace. So this slide was also introduced in order to motivate the budding entrepreneurs sitting here in the audience. That is one area which has got extensive potential, and it is really witnessing a remarkable momentum. If you look at the numbers, India achieved a milestone bioeconomy of $137 billion in 2022 from a meager $8 billion in 2014. And we were trying to pin for the growth of $100 billion by 2025, and then but we ended up achieving a much bigger figure of $150 billion 137 in 2022, and we're going to achieve $150 billion worth of bioeconomy by the next year, and $300 billion worth by 2030. So this is the great pace at which the bioeconomy is moving, and that shows the potential for bioeconomy. Definitely there's of course the contribution from women entrepreneurs, not as much as is expected, but I'm sure in coming years this is going to increase at a great pace. So now if you look at the percentage of women entrepreneurs, although we in the speakers that we had since morning, we about 50% of we have women force in a country, because it's one of the most populous countries after China, and 50% of the total population, 48.2 to be precise, it is constituted by women. But then when we look at the overall women entrepreneurship, India, of course, only 11.4% are women entrepreneurs. So this is something which needs to be enhanced. And if you look at the challenges, of course, they are more or less the same, which have been mentioned since morning. Of course, there are a few more when it comes to entrepreneurship. Sorry. Yeah, so there are a lot of contributing factors also. Like they have the women have a creative thinking power. Morning, of course, we also heard that they have this Midas, the magic touch. They are in fact the most self-reliant segment of the when we talk of Atmanirbhar, it is nothing but self-reliant. So this is one segment which is the most self-reliant. Also, when we look at the family, they have made excellent contribution when it comes to in taking care of the family and being the backbone support of the family. But when we translate this back to how many of them have actually made it successful as a woman entrepreneurs, this figure needs to be strengthened. So we do, BIRAC under the leadership of Madam Dr. Renu Sarup had come up with a very scintillating book, a very motivating book on the 75 biotech women entrepreneurs. So I thought that we would at least, it's not possible to mention the name of all of them. I've just put across the names of some of them and the photographs also. So if we look at the names and the kind of the biotech area that they are trying to touch upon, it's very, very enthusiastic and very overwhelming. For example, the first one, Niramai Health Analyst. This has now come up with an AI-powered breast cancer screening technology. The other one, Zumator, it has actually come up with a therapeutic to take care of the cancers, tumor-directed therapeutic company. The other one, Malipatra, has come up with a mushroom variety, cordyceps, and they have brought down the growth cycle from 1 year to only 2 months. And so that's really, and also the production has also gone up by 10 times. So one by one, if you look some of them into new drugs and some of them into ECG, just a touch-based ECG, they're really great inventions and they've made it very successful. So the photographs, of course, I think we cannot afford to miss the photo of none other than Miss Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, who actually was the first entrepreneur and who's a role model for all of us. And then all the other companies that we touched upon in the last exercise, these are the photographs. And as can be seen, they are not some very, very old or, people, but they're very young, entrepreneurs who actually made it a real success. So, when we look at the top 10 entrepreneurs, only one, Dr. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw among the bio enterprises, she figures out all other areas. So I think this again shows that the potential is huge because the bioeconomy is growing up in a big way. And this there's a huge potential also, expectations of the bioeconomy for the future. And this cannot happen till we have bio-entrepreneurship happening. And all these potential bio-entrepreneurs, women bio-entrepreneurs sitting here, they have to take the big leap and come forward. So when we look at challenges, many of these challenges are the same, which we have heard in the morning. But then like underrepresentation or, the need, security, safety and things like that, work-life balance. But I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, there are many more, challenges, which one has to, we have to see how to overcome them. For example, access to capital, access to mentorship support, advisory support, and also more importantly, access to market. So there are a lot of schemes and there are a lot of government policies, incentives which are coming in to address these gaps and challenges. So this slide is tried to highlight some of the support program of the government, especially meant for women entrepreneurs. So I think it's very heartening to know that the government is seized of the aspect that you women entrepreneurs have a lot of potential, and we need to come up with policies and incentives to bring them forward to the forefront. And so whether it's entrepreneurship promotion or access to finance, or whether it's training or access to mentorship support or market access. So we have a number of programs. Since these slides would be shared, so need not to go into each and every program. So likewise, when Dr. Sarup was at the helm of Affairs for BIREC, a lot of new initiatives at the BIREC level of BIREC were also released, like BioNest, which is I think many of these the directors of the institutes who are represented here, they are the beneficiaries of this BioNest, which is a bio-incubator, and some of them are meant, not all of them, but all of them are open for by the women entrepreneurs, but there are a few of them which are specifically for women entrepreneurs. So they provide you all kinds of the facilities and services to address the challenges which were mentioned in the previous slides. And likewise, the DBT had come up with a scheme called School for International Biodesign, which BCIL has an opportunity of having been associated for a long time, more than 10 years. This is also aimed at developing bioentrepreneurship in the area of biodesign. So a lot of mentorship support is given right from the day one, and till you are in a position to set up your own bioenterprise. And so one who is interested in the area of biomedical device, they are encouraged to look up this scheme. Likewise, the DST has also come up with some schemes. So BIREC, in fact, they have come up with a lot of awards also to honor the successful bio enterprises, the women who are taking the leap and who have made their enterprises success. So that's again something very good, because since morning we've been hearing that the best way is to bring out the role models, and this is one of the best way. Awarding them is the best way to bring out. So it's same wise, likewise, the government of India has come up with a lot of support. So although many of them are gender neutral, not specifically meant for women, but nevertheless, they are very promising. A few of these schemes which are listed here, like the Udyogini scheme, they are meant for women. The Mahila Udyagami scheme, they are again meant for women. So I think it's good to look up some of these schemes, and they are all available at a single place. So it's not difficult to access them. So I think to conclude, suffice to say that, despite women being successful homemaker, successful professional, the representation of women, which is one of the main resource, 50% of our population is women, they are not well represented when it comes to entrepreneurship, and many of them who pursue it also, they are not able to, maybe become, complete the marathon or become a winner. So although there are a lot of improved social parameters, and women, they're known to be very creative, they have good innovative ideas also, but then they are, because of the various challenges listed, they are not able to make a success. And to be self-reliant, India cannot afford to miss the strength of the woman. The woman, as we know, they have the utmost of the inner strength. They have, the resilience, and they can, make a success of anything, provided, they have been given the support system. So according to a recent survey by the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, they say that presently there are about 12 to 13 million, entrepreneurs, out of which the bio enterprise is only about 15 to 20%. So I think this has a potential to increase to about 31.5 million women-owned enterprises by 2030. And these people, these enterprises, because it's well known that the women, they have an all-inclusive power. They also, bring in a lot of job creation, lot of social impact, and of course boost the economy. So this kind of the support is given, and we have these entrepreneurs increase, women entrepreneurs increase, indirectly that will jump up the job creation potential, and also social empowerment, and the economy as such. So I think there's a huge promise when it comes to women entrepreneurship, and the government support with various Atmanirbhar schemes and self-help groups and a lot of international schemes and all. I'm sure they would definitely go a long way in increasing the contribution of women entrepreneurship. So thank you very much for this opportunity once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Purnima Sharma, for highlighting and bringing out the entire ecosystem of the entrepreneurial journey, and also specifically the biotech sector. And thank you for sharing with our audience the different schemes, etc. Thank you very much. This has been an important talk, and many of the youngsters here who want to know about how you get into the biotech ecosystem, please catch Purnima at lunchtime and check with her how you can take it forward. Our next speaker, I'll request Dr. Paramjit to introduce her, but she's going to tell you on ground what it is to be an entrepreneur. So she'll really identify what the key issues and challenges are. So I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Rajeshwari. She's the founder and managing director of BioClone. But more than that, it is important to note that she's a scientist turned an entrepreneur. And the BioClone is one of the bioservice provider company which specializes in customized antibodies, and they have antibodies for about 1,000 antigens and so forth. And interestingly, in 2015, the Entrepreneurship Development Institute of India, they brought out a case study on her as a booklet specifically. So I would not tell you more about that. I'll invite Dr. Rajeshwari to do the needful. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajesh.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the kind introduction. Yes, this is a story which is going to come straight from the heart.
Yeah.
Because it's a story of 2 decades and accidental entrepreneurship. So though we have young entrepreneurs speaking in the afternoon, knowing entrepreneurship for 20 years, I can speak nothing better than entrepreneurship now. So I know this is not an interactive session, but I just have one question for the audience. How many of you want to become entrepreneurs? Oh, that's a phenomenal number. Okay. So first of all, greetings to all of you.
on this great occasion of International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And I'm going to be talking about translational science, converting science to business. STEM fields are very critical to national economies. Almost all current and future jobs require a basic understanding of science and mathematics. All of us know that. Employers, including me, are finding it very hard to get suitable talent. STEM needs women. And for those of you who probably haven't met me before, I come from the Women's Biotech Park in Chennai. And there is a policy that we need to employ more women there. So we are finding it very hard to find suitable talent, the women workforce, so to say. So it is all the more reason that we need more women to get geared up and come into science, whether it is in bachelor's or postgraduate levels. So as Dr. Kalam said, he said, I asked the students to take an oath that they will work in their life to change the lives of at least 100 women by empowering them through education in different spheres of life. And he said, empowering women is a prerequisite for creating a good nation. When women are empowered, society with stability is assured. Empowerment of women is essential as their value system leads to development of a good family, society, and ultimately a good nation. So along these lines, I would like to sincerely thank and acknowledge the contribution by Professor M.S. Swaminathan, the founder of Golden Jubilee Biotech Park for Women Society. He had envisioned a park exclusively for women entrepreneurs, that too in the field of biotechnology in 1997, when biotechnology was still very much in the nascent stage. So thank you, sir, for having thought about this great biotech park for women entrepreneurs, because of it, so many of us women entrepreneurs have been able to realize our dreams and meet our entrepreneurial aspirations. So if Dr. Soumya is on the other side watching it virtually, may I pass on this gratitude to the great person through you. Golden Jubilee Biotech Park is in Siruseri, Chennai. So as I said, my company is in the Women's Biotech Park. I've been operating in this facility for about 15 years. My company was founded way back in 2006, about 18 years ago. I co-founded this company along with my husband, Venkatramani, who also happens to be from the Armed Forces, Indian Navy. So behind every successful man, there is a woman. Behind every successful woman, there is a man and a great mentor too. We started this company with the primary simple objective of custom antibody development and assay development services for life science researchers. I'm an accidental entrepreneur, never came from a family which did business earlier. I never thought that I would be setting up a business too. So my transition from science to business actually happened very accidentally. Like most of you, I followed a typical trajectory, finished my bachelor's, master's, and PhD from Indian Institute of Science, and went on for a postdoctoral research abroad. Came to TIFR Mumbai after 3 years of break in career. I joined Professor Shobhana Sharma's lab, and this is where the transition from science to business happened. Sometimes you need to have a trigger, and there is a turning point for the gear switch that happens, and you don't know when that is going to happen. And my gratitude to Professor Shobhana Sharma for helping me realize the business aspect of the scientific skills that I had those days. And that probably helped the entrepreneurial bug bite me in her lab in 2004. So thank you, Dr. Sharma. So that's when my journey of bioclones started, when I was a visiting fellow in her lab. Several monoclonal antibodies were made when I was working on her malaria project, and thereon I went to setting up the business in Chennai. So I have been riding this business roller coaster for about 18 years. And it is a roller coaster, as you all know, lots of ups and downs. So we started off as a bioservice provider, and we continue to be the bioservice provider, offering end-to-end services from genes to antibodies to assays. We started by bootstrapping, and till date, no outside investment or loans have been taken. So we've been able to sustain through the COVID period also. For last 18 years, we have over 300 plus clients across India and a few abroad, and we have developed over thousands of antibodies. We primarily cater to academia, diagnostic and pharma companies, and R&D divisions of hospitals. So running a successful business and having a successful career is a marathon. It is not a sprint. As all of you know, when you run a sprint, you have to quickly finish the race. You deplete all your mental and physical resources very quickly. But I was very sure I was running a marathon because I had to conserve my resources to be able to build up the stamina to run a longer race. So likewise, all of us have to think long-term, to pace ourselves very well, and to have longevity in mind rather than just short-term results. So that's how we've been able to walk this journey for about 18 years. And 2020, we were also fortunate. Those 3 days of lockdown, which came in, gave me enough time to write a proposal on COVID therapeutics. And we got a funding from National Biopharm, because otherwise, as an entrepreneur, you wear multiple hats. There is no time to write proposals because the projects keep you running all the time. So those 3 days from March 24 to 27, 2020, I had an opportunity to quickly write a proposal on therapeutics, and we got funding from National Biopharma Mission, close to 1 crore, to develop human monoclonal antibodies as therapeutics. So that helped us go through on a different platform for those 1.5 years. So much is being now said about entrepreneurship and Atmanirbhar Bharat. And we have a lot of job seekers. Unless job providers come into picture, it is going to be very difficult for the job seekers to find jobs. And self-reliant India needs a lot of startups, a lot of innovators to come into the scene to be able to achieve this mission quickly. So it's quite heartening to see that 83% of Indian workforce actually prefer to quit jobs and become entrepreneurs. So not that they are not liking their jobs, it's because their entrepreneurial bugs are now biting them. There is a herd bug which is going on, I think, and many of them have actually started to think on entrepreneurial lines. My own colleagues and friends, many of them have been talking about this on the other side of 50. So most rural youngsters aspire to become entrepreneurs as well. This is also a very encouraging scenario. India has the youngest startup population in the world. 72% of its entrepreneurs are under the age of 35. The average tenure of startup founders is 28 years, which is not very short. And 90% of the startup activity in India appears to be concentrated in the top 6 cities: Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Pune, and Chennai. And from 2016 to 2022, there's been a phenomenal increase in the number of startups, from 400 to 26,000. That has been the recorded number as per DPIIT. And last year, February, we had close to 1 lakh startups which had been officially recognized. But unfortunately, startups also do fail. So we need not always paint a very rosy green picture. Startups do fail. So the first year, 20% of the startups fail. In the second year, 30%. Fifth year, 50%. 10th year, about 70% of the startups fail. So probably I have been lucky that I belong to the remaining 30%. So there is also business discontinuation, which happens. More than 10,000 micro, small, and medium enterprises have closed down in the last financial year. And the business discontinuation rate is about 26%. So most of them say it's due to personal reasons and businesses not being profitable. We need to strengthen our IPR ecosystem to be able to have technology-led innovation. And most professional education institutes in India are actually establishing innovation and entrepreneurship cells, which is very nice. And many entrepreneurs are getting incubated out there. Industry associations are now helping young students to promote entrepreneurship. At BioClone, we are also trying to play a very small role in trying to inculcate the spirit of entrepreneurship in the minds of all the young students who come to us as trainees, interns, and industry visitors. And as a woman entrepreneur who has been mentored by another person who had wanted to empower women, I also feel I've also tried to give opportunities to women who have had break in their careers, especially 6 years and 12 years. So I bring them into workforce whenever possible. So, but there's a huge unemployment crisis in India. So my young friends out there, please understand, unless there are job providers, the job seekers are not going to find jobs. So there is 42% unemployment rate among young graduates under 25 years of age. And many of them, very unfortunately, take up menial job roles like delivery boys, telecallers, construction workers, and vendors of street food. So now the entire policy makers have shifted their focus from skilling to building entrepreneurs. So the concept of self-reliance is hopefully going to bring down this unemployment status. On the whole, the climate and the conditions for entrepreneurship are very ripe out there. But still, there is a hesitation to set up a startup. I like that so many of you put up your hands up there. So that's very encouraging to see. But then there is a hesitation. People whom I've spoken 3 years back said they wanted to set up an enterprise are still having their hands up. They have not started it because there is a hesitation out there. It's good to have that thought of entrepreneurship, but what happens when you take the plunge? So today's resources are in abundance to have the entrepreneurship happening. But some of the most common reasons, because money is problem, they are always not wanting to take risks. They don't know the know-how. There is not the correct team or a person with complementary skills. So most of them, though they want to set up a startup, they keep postponing, putting it off. So if many of you are thinking of entrepreneurship, how is it that you can overcome your hesitation to set up? These are some key points, takeaways from what I could gather. So the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, very nicely proposed this model where he said, sit back and think, when I'm 80 years old, will I regret not doing this? If you say yes, you just go for it, just do it. If you say no, then don't bother, don't do it. So it's actually over a long-term risk of not trying and regretting later is more than risk of trying and failing. So this is what each of you needs to bear in mind. So it is good to try and fail rather than not try and regret later, because you're all young and you can afford to do this. Define your minimum achievable top goal. Because the definition of startup key success is very important. All of us like to fantasize and dream of having more than 1,000 customers in one go. It's good to have great dreams, but then you have to learn to set up your minimum achievable top goal. Start working on those milestones one by one. Maybe have your 10 paying customers, first go for 100, then go for thousands. So before you know, you'll be on your path to the dream goals. And keep celebrating each of your small wins, because who else will celebrate than you? And take measured risks. You don't need to leave your jobs or what you're doing currently and jump into entrepreneurship. You can always work part-time, you can delegate, and then validate your business model and take a plunge, because this is exactly what I did in 2008. I got into an incubation setup with Anna University, and I used their facility, explored the viability of my business model. And then when I knew it was working, I just, we bootstrapped and set up a facility in the Women's Biotech Park. So quick note from Jack Ma, if you put bananas and money in front of a monkey, it will choose the bananas every time, because monkeys don't know that money will buy them a lot of bananas. If you offer a person a job or a business, many will choose the job. Similarly, a lot of people don't realize that profit is better than wages. Wages will make you a living, but profit can make you a fortune. Young people out there, please take it from me. Entrepreneurs are not born. They are made as an accidental entrepreneur. I can vouch for it. Every problem is an opportunity, but only if you see it right. So let me finish with these beautiful quotes. Dr. Kalam said, dream is not what you see while sleeping, but something which does not let you sleep. And Kalpana Chawla has very nicely left a message. The path from dreams to success does exist. May you have the vision to find it, courage to get onto it, and the perseverance to follow it. So many of us think setting up an enterprise and running it is like pushing a boulder up the hill. Take it from me. I have run it for 20 years, and it's like nurturing a beautiful garden. So if you still want to take up the entrepreneurial path, if you have the passion in the heart, fire in the belly, and innovation in the head, just take a plunge and go for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajeshwari. So you heard it from the entrepreneur directly, and I liked her last statements. It's all about passion, nurturing it. Thank you very much. I hope you all noticed one aspect when she was standing and talking here. There was no gender to what she spoke. The journey that she has spoken about is the journey of any entrepreneur. It's a risky business. What she's proven to all of you here is women do not need special reservations. Do not deny them the opportunity which they have. And I think that's really the message which Rajeshwari has given. Very well done, Rajeshwari. All the best. And thank you so much. And Paramjit is now going to invite our third speaker, who's actually been the mentor for many, many, many such entrepreneurs who set the whole stage for this whole ecosystem to thrive. And she will share with you, and I will request Paramjeet to kindly introduce Dr. Dipanvita Chattopadhyay. So a great privilege to invite Dr. Dipanvita. She has a very interesting career. She had a job. She then moved to ICICI Bank in 1994, and then she joined the IKP as a CEO in 2001. And then she took over the chair in 2015. So I think she is now running and imparting knowledge to innovators, more than 1,500 innovators and startups at the Life Science Research Park in Hyderabad. She has been recognized as one of the 10 champions of the Indian incubation ecosystems by DST last year, last to last maybe. She received the FICCI Flow Influential Women Award 2021 and the top women achievers in way back in 2017. So I think from one marathon runner to another one, I would say she is the one who's building the playgrounds, I would say. So over to you, Dipanvita.
A very good afternoon to all of you. I know that I have to tell the chairs that there are so many people not gone for lunch and still are here. I think we have made it. We are going to be successful in terms of our SWATI portal. Ma'am, you've done it, because otherwise I could not have expected. I was thinking, I didn't turn back because I was kind of scared to turn back. I was thinking there are only about the first 2 rows. This is amazing. I've at least delivered talks in about 1,000 forums. If it is 215 and so many people, I think we are together and we will make it. So, I was looking at some stats, and Shanghamitra gave some statistics you hear. Women in workforce has declined from 32% in 2005 in India to 19% in 2021. That is scary. 27% lower than the global average. I think we need to do some work around that. Women contribute 17% to our GDP. I think this is 50% lower than global average. I think there is something that we need to do it. The other stat below 20% again is women own only 20% of enterprises, 82% of which are very small micro units or informal units. This is again extremely low. If we can push through our SWATI platform or any other platform we want to build or are already there to make this number 40%, 33%, because we all talk of 33% or 40%, I think the GDP of this country will increase very substantially. We are talking of entrepreneurship today in this session, and we need to talk about how many women entrepreneurs. I'm not talking about biotech because this is about S&T and this is about all entrepreneurship. And if we talk of the 38% of our startups today have women in the management or senior management level, or could be co-founders, could be wives of the founders. But if we have to take the number of only women founders, it's only 6%. So we are still not there, Rajeshwari, you are, but we're talking of only women founders. And I know you were the lead woman founder in your organization, in your company. And this number is kind of low. How do we put this number up is something that I am struggling with at IKP after so many years. And my organization has about 48% women enrolled. But if I'm talking of all the startups that we have looked at. Again, now at the grant level, when for BID or any other grant proposals, I see about 33% women applying for grants. How many of them are able to take their company beyond 7 years? The numbers come down. I have seen where it's a group of men and women apply, the women founders come down. We really need much more role models like Rajeshwari. We need role models. We need to work on this extremely seriously if we have a target of 2030 that we are talking of. You know, the other stat, and I think Shankhamitra was talking about some MSME stat, 21-22 stat this is. And if we look at the states where MSMEs, there are women employees, who can tell me which state would you think have the maximum number of women entrepreneurs and MSMEs? You would think maybe the matrimonial states like Meghalaya or the Northeast or Kerala. No. West Bengal, very strangely, and Shankhamitra, this is really 23.4%, and this is government record, central government report. Yes. And I was wondering, Tamil Nadu had 10.37, Telangana 7.85, Karnataka 7.56, which does not mean we are creating value. Maybe there are a large number of small entrepreneurs in West Bengal, but value-wise, it's Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Kerala has only 4% women-led MSMEs. That is the other strange point. And I think we need to really look at statistics. We need to look at patterns, need to break it down, because if we have to make SWATI, and I'm talking of SWATI, and ma'am, because this is launched by you and you asked me to come here, I thought we have to figure out what we want to do, where we want to see this platform deliver in the next 3 years. And if we have to deliver, we have to make sure that women today become women leaders tomorrow. In 3 years, how many women can we register on the SWATI platform who would become leaders as spokesperson? I do not want the people who are sitting in the front to be spokesperson for SWATI 3 years later. I think we need to create leadership, and that should be the S&T platform of SWATI. It is not about women in STEM, it is about women leaders in STEM. Can we take a path to create leaders? Thank you. I know we are all hungry and we are stretched for time. I'll just close it here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dipanvita, for bringing out some very, very important points. And yes, you rightly said it. We do need the second line to come up now. And the whole purpose of the SWATI portal is to see how we could bring in all the data. And most importantly, how does the data guide us to be able to move forward, not just in science, leadership, for academies, for institutes, for organizations, but for entrepreneurship, for industry, and for many others. So we'll conclude with this. And I think this has been a very interesting session, which has told you about how entrepreneurship is an equally important science sector that the women need to get into, how important it is to understand what are the key challenges in it. And I was also very pleased and surprised, Rajeshwari, to see so many hands up for people who want to become entrepreneurs. But yes, I think that's what we've been seeing happening. And as I said when Rajeshwari spoke, there is no gender to it. So just take this as an entrepreneur journey that you have to move forward with. And I'll conclude and then hand over to Paramjit to give her last remarks. My key message for all entrepreneurs is, and she very rightly said it, it's a risky journey. There are challenges that you have to face, but there's an ABCD to it, which you have to remember. And I give this message to all the entrepreneurs. And that is, A means you must have an ambition. The B is you must have belief in yourself that will take you forward. The C is the commitment. And the D is the determination to succeed. If you follow this ABCD, I'm sure you will be a successful entrepreneur, irrespective of gender. You'll find the challenges, you'll go through it,
with this ABCD of entrepreneurship learning. So thank you all very much for sitting till 2:30 without lunch. And over to you, Paramjeet, to conclude it. Summarized by you, I'll only say that yes, we are hungry. We are hungry for more opportunities, more avenues, more ways how we can learn entrepreneurship and get into the business of it. And yes, of course, for the lunch also. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this very, very vibrant session, Madam Swaroop and Madam Paramjeet. We'll now break for lunch for just half an hour, though we are running extremely out of time. And for the next sessions, we come back before 3.
Hello. There's a request. All the IAP members are requested to come on the dais. We need to take a photograph, a group photograph. नीचे ले लेंगे. हाँ, नीचे ले लेंगे. Please come on towards the stage. Everyone can join us, Yeah.